see our speaker. I'm excited. My name is Sarah Nalude Walakida. I'm currently the CEO at LiveWorks Inc. Limited. We are a full suit creative agency, so you can imagine the excitement I have to be able to host an award-winning creative guru. Good to see you, Emuron. I'm so happy to see you. I'm also so excited, and I'd like to honor Uganda Advertising Association. Frank, it's good to see you, our chairperson, who has ensured that this is possible. Hello, Frank. Good to see you. Good to have you on the call. I'd like to, in a special way, recognize Liz. Liz is also the administrator for UAA. She's been able to coordinate this event and make sure that it's the success that you see today morning, that each of us in the industry learns a thing or two. Well done, Liz. Well done. Well done. So, as has been said in the comments section, you can follow us on Twitter. You can follow Uganda Advertising Association on Twitter at UAA_Uganda. Today we are using the hashtag Creative Lions. You can also, for those of you that are not yet registered with the association, there is both individual and corporate registration and or subscription. So visit our website on uaa.ug and be able to follow us and understand what Uganda Advertising Association is all about. Before we dive into it, I'll just run you through the program. So we'll have time with our guest speaker to take us through an amazing experience that he's had over the past 14 years. And after that, we shall engage in a Q&A session. The Q&A session, some of you had the opportunity to send through your questions while you were registering. Others of you might require or might have forgotten to send through your questions and you think about something. Kindly drop it in the comment section. We'll also give an opportunity, if time allows, for audio questions. Once we're done with Q&A, our chairman will give you some remarks of some exciting information of events and activities that are coming up going forward, so that you can be able to benefit and attain value from being a part of this association, but also the general public at large. So some house rules before we start. Kindly ensure to keep your mics off. If you're not in a great state, keep your cameras off as well, so you don't get any surprises. Other than that, I would like to implore you, please enjoy. Learn, unlearn, relearn, because the person that we're going to learn from today is experienced. They have walked the journey, they have walked the mile. They have not just talked it, but they have actually walked it and have succeeded at it. And that's why we are hosting them today. Especially in the times we are living in, it's unpredictable, and I believe you're going to benefit quite a bit from our guest speaker today. I know I am, and I'm excited because having had the opportunity at being on both the client side and the agency side, it's quite an experience, quite different, but I know I'm going to learn quite a lot today. So I'm not the person you're here to listen to today, so I'd like to get right at it. For those of you that do not know Emuron, allow me to introduce him. I'm just going to take you through his profile. Like I already said, he's a multiple award-winning creative guru. He's had over 14 years of experience in this industry, in the creative industry across the region, not just in Uganda, but across the region. He started his career in what he refers to as a boutique advertising agency called Ignition. And later on, he worked with different agencies that are also under the Uganda Advertising umbrella, which are Mad, McCann, Scanad, Fireworks, Ogilvy Africa, that was in Nairobi. And you may think that he just got there. No, he actually rose through the ranks from a junior copywriter to a creative director that he is right now. He's currently the chief creative officer at betika.com. This is based in Kenya. And he's also had a significant career in music management. So if you thought it's just only art, no, it's also music management and film production. He studied at Kambala Parent School here in Uganda, went to the Kasozi at King's College Budo, and finished at Makerere University. Emuron has competed and won in a number of continental and global awards, such as the Laurie Awards that he won in 2018, the Africa Crystals Awards in 2017, the MSK Awards in 2018, and the Cannes Lions Awards in 2017. So we're excited. I'm excited to hear from you, Emuron. I'm extremely excited. So blow us away. Tell us about your experience. Tell us about your journey. Tell us how we as people in the creative industry can actually walk that journey, get to where you are, and even possibly do better than you have. Because I know one of the things that I've read about you is like you like to impact people. You like to change lives. So please change our lives. Over to you, Emuron.
Thank you very much for the intro. Thank you, Liz, as well for setting this up, and also thank you, Frank, for inviting me to share what I'm going to share. I'll just set up my presentation, because when I was speaking to Frank and discussing what should the presentation be about, he said, make it about, sorry, just 1 minute. Remove that. He said, make it about, what does it take to be an award-winning creative? So I said, cool. It's something I know a little about, so I'll definitely be able to share. Also, just like to, he's on the call. Idris Kamali, for those who might not know him, heads Mad Advertising creatively, and is someone who a lot of the fundamentals that have made me the creative that I am today actually came from the time I worked with Idris Kamali. I can say comfortably that he's a significant mentor in my journey. So the presentation today that I'll take you through is titled, Yes, You Can Be an Award-Winning Creative. Just a specific request, if at any point in time the presentation is not moving properly, please let me know. I think, Frank, you have my WhatsApp. I'll be able to check it out here. I just saw just before Sarah asked me to speak, my internet connection had dropped. So if at any point in time it drops along the way, please let me know. So just keep to note, what I'll be sharing is based off lessons and things I've learned along the way. Some of the things you might know, some of the things might be new learnings. Some of the things might sound a little bit harsh, but it's not me being harsh. It's just me being brutally honest. Remember, the whole purpose of this is for us to learn from each other, to just have a very casual conversation whereby by the time we're done with this discussion, we all leave having picked up something new or learned something new. So how do you go about being an award-winning creative? I'm going to take you through a couple of things that if you do all of them or some of them, will most likely lead you towards that journey of being an award-winning creative, whether it's locally, regionally, or globally. And one thing that's important to note is, yes, it is possible. Do understand, I didn't come from any special place. I came from the same places you've come from. I started off at Ignition not even knowing how to write a brochure. But I learned and I learned and I learned, and I kept pushing. And eventually, because of various sets of learning or various levels of desire, I found myself winning awards. And once you start winning, you will actually be able to keep winning. The harder thing is the thing they say about getting your first million. So I'm not saying I have $1 million, but those who have their first $1 million say that's the harder bit. And once you get your first $1 million, you then figure out how to keep making more money. So the same thing, once you go through the process and you win your first big award, you start understanding, okay, that's what worked, that's what it took, and this is how I continue to ensure that I remain an award-winning creative. So the first thing that you need to do, just 1 moment, my machine. Yes. The first thing that you need to do is stop stopping where you should be starting. And now let me explain this. This is something that I was told a couple of times and I never quite understood, and it used to really frustrate me. When I later understood what was being said, I think one mistake we all make is we think that when we have that fire idea, that greatest idea ever come up with, we think that's it. No, that's just the beginning. Having a fire idea is about 1 to 2% of being on that journey of winning a great award or doing award-winning work. The idea is just the beginning. Now, understand, the idea is the most important thing, but it's also just the beginning. Because after you've cracked that beautiful idea that no one's ever done before, that idea that's so fresh, that idea that you're so excited about, there's a lot of work that has to go into making that piece of work next level. There's a lot of craft. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of understanding what you're trying to push, understanding your consumer, and making that piece of communication the best possible piece it can ever be. That's one thing. Another thing about stopping where you should be starting is another common mistake a lot of good creatives make. There's also a big difference between good and great, because good creatives will deliver work that people love, people smile about, people like, people give a thumbs up. The problem is a lot of good creatives have a habit of resting on their laurels. Oh, I did a fire campaign last month. Oh, I did a fire campaign last year. Did you see my TV commercial? The radio ads that have been killing, the whole of last year were all mine. Oh, that campaign that no one's ever seen before, that was me. And then someone thinks, you know what, I've arrived. The moment you stop is the moment you give up on your opportunity to become an even greater creative. So remember, good creatives will always be like, yo, I do dope shit. Great creatives are like, I did some dope shit yesterday or last year, or even just a few hours ago, but now I want to do even more. So step one, guys, remember, stop stopping where you should be starting. Don't rest on your laurels and don't think that a dope idea is enough. A lot of work has to go into making that work next level. The next thing, don't be global, be local. And allow me to explain this to you. This I learned when I had a conversation with this gentleman. This gentleman, Paul Smith, at the time I was talking to him, was the chairman of creativity for Europe, Middle East, and Africa for Ogilvy, the Ogilvy network. And he said to me, Emuron, the problem with Africa right now is a lot of your creatives have perfected their craft to the point that it looks international. And I'm confused. I'm like, but what's wrong with that? Says the thing is, every top creative in Africa right now, in the offices I have been to, can do work that looks like it's come from anywhere in the world. It could have come from Europe, could have come from America. And I'm asking myself, but what's wrong with that? Is it not the ambition to have international standard work, to do work in Kampala that looks like it could have come from New York, to do work in Nairobi that looks like it could have come from France or London? I said, that's not it. The thing is to do work that looks like it could have come only from Kampala, to do work that looks like it could have come only from Nairobi, only from Lusaka, only from Marrakesh, whereby, yes, it's international standard, but a certain element, the aesthetic, the tone, the sound, whatever it is so uniquely local. So it's global standard in terms of the craft and the thinking, but the way it's been articulated is very local. It's the whole thing where people ask, what language do you dream in? Do you dream in English or do you dream in your local dialect? Did you think of the idea in English or did you think of it as in a local way? Did you think of the idea as a Ugandan or just as a global creative? Did you think of the idea as a Kenyan or just as a global creative? You start by making it feel as local as possible. And he then gave me examples of Brazil and India. And if you look at this work here, this could be for Umoja slippers. This could be for any beverage in UG, Uganda Waraji. But things at this point in time, Brazil and India were winning a lot of international awards. But the reason for this was simple. Brazil and India were unapologetically Brazilian and unapologetically Indian. Now, again, while maintaining their local texture or their character, they ensured that the craft on their work was international standard. So again, remember, be global, not global. Global means your work looks like it could come from anywhere. And he even gave me an example of South Africa. At that point in time, South Africa were really picking up so many awards globally. And he said it's going to dip. And if you look at the last year, South Africa has dipped a little bit. Yes, they're still the most awarded on the continent compared to the other countries, but they're not winning as much before. And he said the problem with South Africa is South African work sounds like and looks like it could have come from anywhere in Europe. And this is Paul Smith telling me this. And I also do remember I mentioned Idris earlier. Idris also used to show us work back in the day where he's like, look, there's a certain style of art direction that comes from Germany. And I remember a particular piece was Germany and Mexico. And that difference. Was the craft brilliant on both pieces of work? Yes. But there's something about the Mexican work that looked Mexican, and there's something about the German work that looked German, specifically. So what this means, remember, people are submitting tens of thousands of pieces of work. When people are going through and they're judging from one piece of work to the next, the work that will stand out will be the work that will look different or sound different or come from an insight that is so unique. And the beauty about being in Africa is this. We have stories that the rest of the world have never, ever heard of. We have experiences that the rest of the world will never be able to experience. And that's where we need to be sourcing a lot of our ideas. Be local, not global. Yeah? The next thing, what the world is doing. Do not just look at what's happening in the next agency. Or what's my competition doing? Or I work on MTN, so I only care about what the agency that works on Airtel is doing. Don't be that guy or that girl. Always try and observe what the rest of the world is doing. What's happening in India? What's the fire campaign that came out from there? What's happening in Hungary? What's happening in Zambia? What's happening in Malawi? Don't just care about, oh, what's the dopest ad or the ad campaign in UG right now. Just Google, the internet is right there. Look for best ads from Malawi. See what's happening there. Look for best ads from Argentina or Brazil or Kazakhstan. Doesn't matter. Study what the world is doing and start asking questions. You might see some pieces of work that make no sense to you. But you must inquire, why did this piece of work in Zambia? Why did this piece of work in China or Taiwan or wherever it is? Please study what the world is doing. Do not stay within your bubble. Do not look at the next guy down the road or in the next agency as your competition. Look at the whole world as your competition. Because if you want to win awards, the fact is you're going to be competing with people from Bulgaria, from Peru, wherever it is, from Mexico, doesn't matter. You're going to be competing with the whole world. So study what the world is doing. Understand why a particular piece of work worked in Dubai and didn't work in Chile. Try and understand what works here and doesn't work there. What has a universal thread, what has a universal appeal, and what doesn't. What is so domesticated and what is more international. Try and understand. Find out if free seminars online, for example. There could be TEDx's, but done by advertising experts. I know Tam Kai Meng, for example, who used to be the global head of creative for Ogilvy, actually used to have, I think on YouTube, he used to post tips on how to make amazing films. He used to post tips on how to edge the competition in different awards shows. So look for this information. Try and understand who are the top people. Anselmo Ramos, for example, I'll talk about a little later. He's constantly sharing information on Twitter and so on. Study what the world is doing. Listen to seminars, a lot of TEDx's. Find out what made pieces of work dope, what work is dope as per the different markets that exist in the world. And also study the world around you. So there's the world globally, but also the world around you. Remember, I said the ideas that are going to change the world or change your life might just be right next door. But do not just stick to your neighborhood or your craft. Look at what's happening in UG. Understand what's happening in different parts of the country. Try and read about more than just advertising. Dig deep into advertising, but be very observant of your environment. Don't stick to, oh, I'm going to do the next telco ad or the next brewery ad or the next fuel company ad. Just try and understand all the different stories and dynamics within the country. Study, read as much as you can. And I'm not saying go back to school. No, I'm just saying read newspapers, have conversations with people, And also, another thing, when I said stop stopping where you should be starting, when you land on an idea, and this is supposed to be your game-changing idea, study everything about it. I just judged an award show about 3 weeks ago for young creatives for the French government. And there were these kids from Mauritius who created a filter that allows you to be able to detect pollution based on the pictures you've taken on Instagram. But the kid was talking with all knowledge about the different hues and what they mean and the different types of pollution. Because while he's working on this piece of work, he has decided he's going to be the expert because he wants to know everything about it. When I did a campaign about the rhinos, I knew everything about IVF for rhinos that I could find. And that information is available on the internet. When I did a campaign whereby we were giving the deaf, people who had a particular type of deafness, the opportunity to listen to football commentary. I studied everything I could find about different types of deafness, bone conductive technology, and what was available to the extent of understanding where it was sourced from military intelligence organizations. Go deep and understand what you're trying to communicate. Become the expert, because when you're going to put this communication out to people, you have to be credible and authentic. And the only way you do that is by understanding it fully. I cannot come and talk to you about advertising if I do not have advertising experience. You will not listen to a doctor who doesn't understand your ailment. You will not listen to an architect or an engineer who doesn't understand their craft. So if you're going to be advertising alcohol, understand that alcohol perfectly. If you're going to do a campaign on, let's say, FGM, female genital mutilation, understand everything, and that information is free of charge on the internet. All you need to do is get bundles. That's basically it. So study what the world is doing, but also study as much as you can about the ideas that you're working on. The next thing is you need to be a stalker. And let me explain what I mean by this. You need to follow people like, now I remember I mentioned Anselmo Ramos, Fadi Yaish, Holisa Desanya. Now, let me explain why I'm telling you to stalk these people. These people are available on social media, number one. But the thing is, these are different. So Anselmo Ramos started David Miami, which was an offshoot of Ogilvy, and now he has one of the fastest growing agencies called Gut. I met Fadi Yaish at the Luris a couple of years ago, and when I say I met him, we're in the same room. We're not like we're homies and we WhatsApp each other. No, we don't know each other at that level. But he's just started a boutique agency in the Middle East, and is picking up so much business and winning so many awards. Holisa Desanya is in South Africa doing amazing work as well. And there's so many people. When I started off, before I knew Anselmo or Holisa and Fadi, I used to follow a gentleman called Piyush Pandey out of India, for example. And there will be so many different examples. Leave alone someone from South America, Middle East. Right here in Kenya, my creative partner, Maxwell Ngari, is someone you can also follow. Why do you need to follow these people? These are people who are making changes or doing big things within the industry that you want to shine in. So it just makes sense that you follow them. Listen to what they're saying. Look at the pieces of work they're sharing. Listen, pick up those little nuggets that they drop on Twitter or Instagram, of those little bits of information. If you don't, it's like this. Let me explain it this way. Many of you might know, which rapper stole which rapper's chain. Lil Baby, Young Baby, Lil Uzi Vert, all these different people. Someone on this particular call might even know who Rihanna was with yesterday, but you do not know who these individuals are. That's the equivalent, in my honest opinion, of you saying you want to be the next Ballon d'Or winner, you want to be the next big star leaving Uganda to play in the EPL, but you do not know who Cristiano Ronaldo or Messi are. It just doesn't make sense. You follow Cristiano Ronaldo and Messi because you want to see what they do so you can become a better footballer. That would be basic logic, yeah? Why are you not following the people who are the equivalents of Ronaldo and messy within your industry. And the fact is, all these guys are always dropping information on social media free of charge. You don't have to pay for TEDx. You don't have to pick up a call, a phone and call them. No, the information is being given for free. Stalk these people. And if it's not on Selmo or Fadi or Holisa or Max, who's right here next door, it might be someone in UG. It might be someone else that you found who you've seen a piece of work. So, for example, one thing you should always do, if there's a piece of work being shared on the different social media platforms you're on, maybe someone shared a film or campaign, always go and find out who did it. Find out who did it and then start following that person. Stalk the shit out of this person to the point that if you bump into them, they'll be so concerned that you know so much about them and their work, they might want to call the police. That's how you learn for free, guys. Be a stalker of the best creatives around the world. F the excuses, guys. It is so easy to come up with the excuses. And I have come up with excuses myself, and I've had so many excuses, but now at least I'm very clear about what excuses are BS. If you want something badly enough, you will do it. You know, I've had things like, oh, yeah, but that kind of work would never work in our market. And people are like, yeah, awards do not mean anything. The people who tell you awards don't mean anything are people who are not winning awards. That's the honest truth. Oh, our work is dope, but people in the international market who don't understand our market will not understand it. Then it's dope only in your market, because you need to understand, and I'll give you examples of what you have to, as I said, be local. It has to be so local, so Ugandan, so Kenyan, so Zambian, so Congolese, but yet so very dope that anyone watching it from Brazil will be like, yo, have you seen this work from Uganda? Yo, have you seen this work from Lilongwe or wherever? So that's nothing. Stop coming up with excuses. Oh, you don't understand our market, that's why you don't understand this art. Or that stuff would never work here. Or budget. And we'll get to budget as well, because people talk about budget a lot. The perfect example, proof that what I'm saying is not BS, of how you can be as local as possible and still internationally dope. Look at what Thailand did. Thailand did not try and change their advertising to be what the rest of the world was doing to match international standards. They made sure the production was international standard, which you can also do locally by also supporting your local directors and production houses to improve their craft. What they did is they got their Thai ads and made them so intriguing that even someone who's not from Thailand will be like, yo, that shit would maybe not work in my country, but man, I love the ad. I personally love a lot of the ads from Thailand. And if you're looking to see some interesting work after this webinar, please just go and look for Thai ads on YouTube. You may spend the whole day. I have an example here. Just watch this ad.
ดีครับ
ขอดูใบอนุญาตหน่อย
เนี่ย
ข้างหลังขนอะไรมา
อ๋อก็ขนมาเขา
มันทั้งนั้นเลยมาจากไหน
มาจากปากครับ
แล้วจะไปไหน
ไปพุง
เข้าไม่ได้มันแผลบเลยอย่างนี้ต้องจับ
พี่จะบ้าเหรอจากปากไปพุงเนี่ยผมขนมาร่วม20 ปีแล้วพี่
อะไรมันเข้าไม่ได้
ก็วิ่งทุกวันนะผมไม่เคยโดนจับเลย
แต่วันนี้ต้องจับ
จับข้อหาอะไร
ขนมันไปพุง
มันจะทำอะไร
อย่างนี้ต้องจับไง
มันจะจับได้ยังไง
พอกูบอกแล้วไงมันเข้าไปไม่ได้
มันไม่ผิดกัน
แต่เข้าไม่ได้ไม่ผิดได้
อย่าพูดเขียนอะไร
มึงจะเอากูใช่ไหมฮะ
ไม่พี่แต่พี่มีเห
ที่
ตุ
มึงจะเอา
คือเส้นเนี่ยผมขนมาผมไม่เคยเจอพี่เลย พี่มีเหตุผลไหม
นี่
พี่มาจากไหน
มาจากปาก
จะปากใคร
วุ้นเส้น
วุ้นเส้นอะไรวะ
ฮะอ่ะโช ไปไหนเนี่ย
ไปต้นขาครับ
เปิดดิเปิดน้ำมันทั้งนั้นเลย
เอาคนน้ำมันไงพี่
เอาเข้าไปไม่ได้
พี่จะบ้าเหรอไม่เอาเข้าผมจะขี่ยังไง
ต้องจับ
อะไรมันนี่เข้าไปไม่ได้
ใช่
มันเทศ
ไม่ได้
มันแก้ว
ไม่ได้
สับปะรดอ่ะ
ได้
มันสับปะหลัง
ไม่ได้
แก้ว
ได้
ช้าง
ได้
ม้า
ฮะงงไหมไม่งง
ควาย
หน้ามัน หน้าก็เอาเข้าไปไม่ได้
บ้าไปแล้ว ก็เมื่อก่อนมันเข้าได้อ่ะ
เดี๋ยวนี้ไม่ได้เขาห้าม
เขาอะใคร ไม่พี่อะใคร
ไข่ตัวสาร
ใครวะใครตัวสาร
ไข่ตัวสารในผลิตภัณฑ์เสริมอาหารชัวร์จากวอรีนา
ช่วยในการดักจับไขมัน
งงโฆษณาใช่ไหม
ใช่
อ๋อ
So I think as you can see here, the ties are being unapologetically tied. This is probably an ad that will not work in the West. This is probably an ad that might not work in parts of Africa. Let's be honest, this is probably an ad that you would struggle to sell to a client here. But the fact is what they did is like we do a particular style of advertising in Thailand and we're going to do it to an international standard, but we're not going to compromise who we are. Yeah. So don't have excuses about, oh, our market this, our market that. Be unapologetically yourself. It's a perfect example as well for big local. But then do it to a standard that the rest of the world, make the rest of the world love your work. Don't try and emulate them or try and imitate what they're doing. And don't sit back and use that as an excuse that, oh, people won't get what we're saying. If that's the case, you're simply not working hard enough to make it international. And then budget. Budget is a very common excuse. Yeah, if we had those kind of budgets, I've also used those excuses. Yeah, if we had those kind of budgets, would have definitely done. No. Budget is an issue everywhere. The fact is, different markets, different budgets. That's fine. But then there's award-winning work like this. How much was spent on this? Guys, this is in-house. Basic photography or 3D renders of this, and you're done. This is IKEA campaign. It's an IKEA campaign selling furniture, comparing it to the price of particular products. It's 3 coffees for a table, 15 soft drinks for a lamp. Very simple. You're not going to tell me this is $1 million production. No, this can't have even cost $100,000. And we all know that. So let's not have budget as an excuse. The fact is, the leaner your budget, the more creative you have to get. So do not limit yourself to, oh, the day I get a big budget, the day I'll do award-winning stuff. If you can't do award-winning stuff with a small budget, I guarantee you, they'll give you $1 million and you'll do $1 million worth of trash. No offense, you know. Believe in yourself, guys. You're not going to win if you don't believe that you're going to win. You're not going to do dope stuff if you don't believe that you can do dope stuff. That is very, very, very simple. I always tell people it's important to have an ego. Now, let me explain. There's 2 ways that your ego can operate. One can be very detrimental. One can be your ego telling you what I talked about earlier. You resting on your laurels. Oh, I'm so dope. People have to accept that whatever I've come up with is dope. And if they don't get it, then they just don't understand dopeness. That's the wrong way to use your ego. The right way to use your ego is this. People didn't feel this last piece of work I put out. Okay, I'm going to push even harder because I know I'm dope. And I'm going to push to the point that the next piece of work I put on this table, the next piece of work I put out there, everyone's going to be like, yo, that was dope. That's how you use an ego. Don't use an ego to the point of like, oh, let me rest on my laurels. No, your ego should always push you. It says, yo, man, come on, you can do better because you know you're among the best. Second thing is stop believing the haters. I think many of us on here do remember we had a group for copywriters and something, directors, Uganda Copyright. I can't remember the full name of the group. Unfortunately, that group became a group where people would just shit on each other. And a lot of veterans would come and say, oh, the new generation don't know what they're doing. Don't believe those people, guys. If someone says that you're trash, it's fine. Sometimes it might be genuine feedback, but being trash today doesn't mean you have to be trash tomorrow. Guys, remember, when I joined this industry, I didn't know how to write a brochure, and I think Edris can attest to some of the earliest scripts that I wrote when I was at Man. I'm sure I gave him such a headache with the trash that I was writing. But eventually you push you. After script number 34, maybe you have something that is decent. So guys, being given negative feedback is not a bad thing. Sometimes people are just being haters. It's fine. Let them hate. That's perfect. You should be using those haters actually as fuel. If someone comes and tells you, you know what, your creative is trash, okay, let me go back and show you that I can do something even bigger. That's how your ego pushes you, because your ego says, I cannot end my chapter in advertising with people saying I do trash work. Guys, there's so much talent in UG. Don't even get it twisted. There's so much talent. It's just about that willingness to work hard, and also that self-belief that you can be among the best. Do not set your bar of like, okay, I just want to be the best in my agency, or I just want to be the best in UG. You have to want to be the best in the world. And then now, talent is how you get in, then the hard work is how you take the next steps. And about belief, let me tell you why belief is so important. It's this simple. If you believe that you can win global awards and that you can be the best in the world, then you're probably right. Now, I cannot guarantee that you'll be the best or that you'll win. However, if you believe you cannot win and you cannot be the best, then you're 100% right. Failure to have belief is damning yourself to actually fail. So if you don't believe you can do dog shit, then you will never. So you have to be that guy who believes you're the best in the world, even before your own CD in your agency thinks you're the best. You might be the worst writer or the worst creative at that point in time where you are, but you have to believe that you'll be the best and work towards that. And then talking about working towards things, guys, persist. If there's anything, guys, remember that persist. Putting together great work, it takes time, guys. It takes time. The Swedish number here, which is top left, that took 2 years. And that's another thing to also remember. We used to argue with guys coming in from the Paris office or the London office that, oh, you guys don't have the same problems we have here. Clients don't understand. Those problems are global, by the way. That stuff of all clients spoil good work. Those problems are global. Now understand, Swedish number, first of all, convincing the client. Who's the client, guys? The government of Sweden. Now, any of us who has done any work to do with the government or NGOs understands how difficult it is to push through amazing work, because they want simple work that the world can, that everyone can understand, the common term, idiot-proofing it. This piece of work took, because I had the privilege of talking to the team that worked on it, they took 2 years to get this piece of work through. So understand, your idea that the client might have rejected today, don't delete that file. Keep pushing. But then again, don't just leave it in a folder and say, one day I'll come back to it. No, push until eventually it gets through. The Moldy Whopper, which has recently won a lot of awards, and I'll talk about craft shortly after. The Moldy Whopper took them 9 months to get the right look, because client, guess what, approves the idea. But now, the images of this Whopper, it just look ghastly, too nasty to put on a billboard. And say, the only way I'll put this on a billboard, on a piece of work, is if, yes, it looks moldy, but it looks beautiful. Again, I spoke to the team that worked on this campaign. And they were like, first they were experimenting in the agency, but then the agency began smelling, because you have rotting food. So they actually had to convince the photographer to let them experiment in his studio. And they kept trying different looks and different ways of treating this particular burger until it had the right look that the client would approve. Guys, time, you have to persist. This campaign I did, The World's Most Eligible Bachelor. At this point in time, when we came up with the idea, guess what? We had WWF as our client in the agency. So we went to the client and said, guys, we have an idea for you. They said, no, this idea is trash. I said, wow, okay. Do we give up? No. Made a few phone calls. Turned out the particular rhino we were talking about lived on a specific conservancy. We reached out to them. They said yes. Excellent. Now, within Ogilvy, what happens is every year there's a meeting where all the creative heads, I think this year they were meeting in Barcelona. This idea was presented in front of everyone and said, no, the idea is trash. In fact, we were told, drop this idea. there's another idea we're working on for Airtel. While focusing on that, we decided, you know what, to hell with it. Let's just get our idea out there. And then, of course, when it wins, everyone is like, yeah, we told you this was going to win. This was an amazing piece. No. People told us it was going to fail. People told us it was trash. Our own clients refused it. Some guys who we didn't know at the Operator Conservancy, who we called, were like, hey, we're happy to work with you. But there's going to be so many points when you're told no. And if you're told no, and your answer is to just put the work away, sorry. Then you're missing out on an opportunity. You have to persist, persist, persist. When someone tells you no, look for someone else who will tell you yes. If you can't find someone else, come back to this person who told you no. Try and understand what it will take for you to get a yes. Also remember, going back to the Swedish number. After getting the government to say yes, they needed to find a telco that would allow them to do this campaign. Just have a look at it after this call. You'll see the case study and you realize how difficult it must have been to put something like this together. But then again, that's going back to even the excuses. We might assume that in the rest of the world, it's like, oh, these guys were just lucky they had a client who understood. These guys are lucky they work in a market where people understand good work. No, these problems are everywhere. Whether you're in Vietnam, whether you're in Buenos Aires somewhere, whether you're in London, whether you're in Kampala, whether you're in Lagos, the problems are the same, and that's the honest truth. So don't even use it as an excuse ever, ever, ever. The fact is, you will have to persist. You will have to really want to bring that piece of work to life. And then even in terms of persistence, guys, I'll just skip this. Craft, guys. Craft, 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 craft. The craft of your work. I'll use this as an example. This piece of work here could have easily started off with just a guy with headphones in a room with people screaming. But then someone said, no, let's explore different ways. When you have an idea, think of how best can I bring this idea to life. Explore. Again, I'll mention Edris, and this is not an ad for Edris, but I'm just telling you my Edris stories. Edris used to make me write headlines for one ad, and it'd say, write 10. You write 10, he has a look, he says, maybe this one. You go back, you come back with another 10. Now you're on 20, yeah? Says, okay, maybe one or two of these, but continue. But this time come back with 20. Now, all writers here can tell you, by the time you've written 10 headlines and you're a junior writer, you've really racked your brain. You've done another 20, then Edris wants another 20. And from those 20, he might pick two and say, along these lines, you try and give me another 20. Before you know it, you've written 100 lines. And let me tell you, the thing is this. After the 100 lines, Edris is like, you know what, from the whole 100, because he's kept all the sheets of paper, he's like, this one, and this one I think could work. And then you're like, expecting that your line is going to end up on that one. You find Edris had already cracked a line 2 hours ago, but it was pushing you 100 different ways. So that's the same thing. When you're thinking, explore, how many ways can I do this layout? How many ways can I write this radio spot? How many ways can I write this film? Explore and craft till it is so well finished. If you look at this artwork here, even when you're now doing the final craft, you decide that this is what you want to do. When you look at the sweat, the lighting, the little trophy up top there, the level of detail, the drool, the tears, everything there shows that when you look at this piece of work, there is no way it could have been better. And that's another thing that you'll find with time. Yes, I mentioned the fact that you should not stop where you should be starting. But with time, when you do this exercise, you also realize that you'll get to a point when you need to also learn when to stop. Because beyond this, you start spoiling the work, you start overcooking it. But craft, guys. Explore. Do 100 layouts. Do 100 lines. By lines, I mean headlines. Rewrite the script so many different times till it's perfect. Explore different ways. Work the craft until it cannot be worked anymore. Because the fact is this: great idea, poor craft, you failed yourself. You've wasted the idea. That's the honest truth. And globally, from even the smallest markets, the kids who are coming through with some deadly craft, the finesse on their work is amazing. Next thing, dial a friend. Teamwork, guys. A lot of people feel like, oh, I have an award-winning idea. I should be the only one to win the award. If you're going to do it by yourself, forget about it. You will fail. The best pieces of work, and if you see award shows, a big team goes up on stage because someone said, okay, look, the honest truth is that some people might steal your idea. So be careful who you're calling in. But ask a friend, what do you think of this idea? Your friend will be honest with you and might tell you, oh, you're just sipping on your own Kool-Aid. It's not dope. But what if you tried it this way? Get those different ideas. Explore. You know, you will not be able to do this alone. Me, I'm telling you that for a fact. Feel free to share the credit. There's people who want to be like, oh, it's just me. They want to be selfish. Don't be selfish. Work with people. And another thing is this, and again, someone told me, whose name I won't name because I've named it a lot, always work with people better than you. And what does this mean? Let me just stay on this point for a little bit. Working with people better than you, and you might be, say you're creative director, you're like, okay, but I'm the creative director, meaning I'm the best creative in the room, so how am I supposed to work with people better than you? Collaborate with your fellow creatives, your other creative directors. But also when you're hiring, the struggle is like, okay, how do I hire a junior who's better than me? No, hire someone who you look at and you say, in 5 years, this guy could be my boss. Or this person has a particular skill. I know so many things, but this particular one thing, this kid is way better than I could have ever been, and is perfect at this thing. So work with people that are better than you, but also remember teamwork. Big wins come from working with teams. And the team might not be within your agency. It could be a buddy. It could be someone you just bounce off the idea. Someone who's going to be brutally honest with you. Don't go to your girlfriend who you just started dating 3 months ago and ask her, what do you think of this piece of work? She'll be like, oh, it's great. No. If you have a wife, now you can go to your wife, because your wife will, I've gone to my wife sometimes, ideas that I think are fire. Then I walk in, I take her through, she's like, okay, so what's the cool thing about this? And I'm there gutted. Go talk to someone who will be honest with you. That friend who you don't like, who gives you the truth, that's the person to talk to when you're thinking of pushing this idea to be award winning. And then it's also key to understand that the process is competitive. You might not always win. On average, if you look at Cannes Lions, for example, upwards of 7,000 pieces of work in the print category alone. Upwards of 7,000 pieces of work coming from all over the world. So it's a competitive thing. So you have to be among the best. You have to give it your best. But if you don't win, don't be heartbroken. You lost to the best, to be honest. That's why you find people celebrate shortlists. For your work to be shortlisted at these award shows is a big thing, guys. So don't be heartbroken when you do all these things and then you don't win. Then you're like, man, this Emuron guy told me if I stop doing this and if I be global, blah, 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 if I be local, I'll win. And I didn't win. Don't be heartbroken. It happens, guys. You will not always win. Yeah? And then you have to also get the world talking about your work. That's a very, very key thing. If only people in advertising are talking about your work, if your work is not pervasive enough that it ends up on the news, people are not discussing it on Twitter, there's a high probability it will not win. If you see a lot of award-winning stuff, it's picked up by news channels. If you look at the case studies, like in the case of the old projector work we did, we were surprised. It was on CNN, Al Jazeera, all these different, Jimmy Fallon, all these guys have picked it up. There were news channels in Kazakhstan. There's a friend who called from Brighton, and they were like, yo, have you heard of this campaign coming out of Kenya? I'm like, yeah, blah, 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 it's on the news in Brighton. If within the country or outside the country, people are not talking about the work, there's a probability it's not impacting society enough. Your work can't just be dope to your fellow creatives or advertising people. It has to be dope to the world. The world must be like, yo, that's interesting. That's changing lives. Oh, I've not seen things this way. If your advertising is not as interesting as all the other, the same way people share songs, people should be sharing your content. Those of you who, of course, are in the know, like yesterday, DJ Alicia was showing up in different WhatsApp groups. So if your work is not showing up the way DJ Alicia is showing up in WhatsApp groups, then there's a probability that it might not win. So make sure your work is that intriguing and that impactful. And then, guys, another key thing, packaging. You've done great work. It's impactful. People are talking about it on the news. You've done everything right, and there's potential for this thing to win an award. Your case study. But please, if you have a chance, just go online and look for award-winning case studies. See how people package the story of their idea. Because I'll tell you, as someone who's judged many of these awards, there's so many case studies. And the idea might be dope, but it's 3 a.m. I've looked through 100 pieces of work. Your piece is 101. If it doesn't give me a reason, and it's 2 minutes, every piece is 2 minutes. And again, I have to pay attention because I have to give every piece of work a fair chance. So if yours is not grabbing my attention, if it doesn't make me smile or laugh at a particular point in time, or maybe feel emotional, then you didn't package it well. Even in radio ads, I've seen cases where someone will just submit an audio file, and that's fine. But a lot of the award-winning stuff, someone will put together a little animatic, which brings their radio ad to life. But the category is radio. They're only judging it on the audio. But while I'm judging, I can just listen, or I can listen and I have something that brings your radio ad to life. So packaging, guys. If you're submitting stuff for awards, package it well. If you're doing just a case study board, my God, make it beautiful. Give it the same love that you give your favorite artworks. Yeah? And then key, you have to conquer home before you conquer the world. Paul Smith said, and the thing is this, and I know a couple of creatives who have spoken to me from UG, and they're like, oh, if I was working in a different market, I would be doing dope stuff. The problem in this market is it doesn't get ideas. No, you're lying to yourself, guys. You have to first conquer your market. Then you conquer the region. Then you conquer the world. Paul Smith put it best. He said you have to be, your idea or yourself has to be the best in your agency, the best in your country, the best in your continent, then the best in class, and that's now global. So if you're not doing dope work in UG, do not think that if you move to Kenya or you move to Lagos or you move to Joburg, that suddenly you start doing dope work. No, that won't suddenly change. Figure out how to do dope work in UG. So do dope work in your agency first and get attention there. Make your CD happy or the entire team there. Let them love the work you do. Then become one of the best in the country. Then you will become one of the best in the region. Then you become one of the best in the continent. And then you'll be able to conquer the world. There's no pole vaulting to suddenly, I wasn't able to do great work in UG, but oh, look at me, I've won Cannes. That will not happen. Oh, I wasn't able to crack something fire that people in the region loved, but look at me, I've won Clios. That will not happen. You have to do that progressive growth. And then, guys, you have to be proactive. No, go to the client with an idea. A lot of the best campaigns did not come from an actual brief. It's someone thinking like, yo, what if you did A, B, C, or D? And then their creative partner is like, yo, that's amazing. They bounce it off some of the agency. That would be exciting. Then you package it and then go to the client and say, hey, you know what? I know this is not something you briefed, but what if you did something like this? Wouldn't it be amazing? And also understand, don't go to the client with something that won't work for their business. Please. That is a big waste of time. Go to the client with something that will work for their business, but that is proactive. They will also appreciate that. And you know what? There's a high probability that the first 4, 5, even 10 times, they will say no. But then the more you go to them, and if they're not going to buy the packet, try all your different clients. Always be proactive and go with different ideas that you can to these clients. Do not wait for the brief. There's a high probability your brief might come, the brief will come, and it doesn't give you the potential to do award-winning work. I'm talking about briefs. I don't know if there are any suits here. Guys, sometimes the brief is so good, it will lead to award-winning work. It's a very simple adage. Trash in, trash out. If your brief is average, don't start complaining, oh, how come my creatives never give me award-winning work? Because you gave them an average brief. If your brief is not award-winning, don't expect award-winning work. So sometimes, as creatives, you have to be proactive with the support, obviously, of your suits. Or sometimes, if you're a suit and you get a brief and you think, if I write a fire, I got this brief from a client, but if I write a fire brief, I see where I can take this to make it potentially award-winning. Remember, it's teamwork. Award-winning is not a creative only thing. It's the entire agency, it's the entire ecosystem. So yeah, be proactive and go to the client with ideas that did not necessarily come from a brief as well. And then, like I said, it's competitive, guys. Remember, win is not always guaranteed. Some I know people who are brilliant who've never won even one award. I know people who it's taken years. Dr. Stefan Vogel, for example, who's the global head of creative for Europe, Middle East, and Africa. He took over from Paul Smith. He told me how he joined advertising, I think he was 24, and every year he tried to win. He won his first Cannes Lion when he was 40. So guys, it's not a guaranteed thing. And also a shortlist. If your work is shortlisted, it's a big thing. And so you should also celebrate those small wins. Do not Do not be like, oh, I didn't win gold at Ghana, I'm going to kill myself or whatever. Be dramatic about it. No. Celebrate what you've done. But all these different steps, if I'm to just quickly recap, is stop stopping. Stop stopping where you should be starting. Don't be global. Be local. Study what the world is doing. Be a stalker. Stalk the best in the world. F the excuses. And in particular, budget is not an excuse. You have to believe in yourself. You must persist, persist, and persist to push your idea through, and you must craft, craft, craft till the craft on your idea is the best it potentially can be. You must dial a friend, make it about teamwork, because big wins come from working as teams. Understand that it is competitive, so give it your best, because there's someone else from a little agency in a random country, maybe Macedonia, whatever it is, who's also trying to win. So do not think it's an easy journey. Get the world talking. If people are not talking about your work, if it's not being shared in different WhatsApp groups, if it's not being picked up by the news, then unfortunately, you're not impacting society enough for that work to be memorable, and potentially will not win, to be very honest. And packaging. Remember, when you're submitting stuff forwards, that packaging, people spend a lot of time and sometimes even money getting that packaging right. Do not just be like, oh, my radio spot is fire, let me upload the audio file. No, the case study, the story behind the work is as important as the work itself. And then you must conquer home before you conquer the world. You cannot think that, if I go somewhere else, I'll do better. No, you have to start by conquering home. And then be proactive. Don't just wait for the brief. Yes, if you get a good brief or you get a brief, you can try and see how to convert it into something award-winning. And you should always try. But also, sometimes just go to clients with ideas that you think are dope. And even if they say no, keep up that practice. And then the last bit is, remember, a win is not always guaranteed. So don't be hard on yourself just because you didn't win. And then yeah, that's my bit. Over to the Q&A. Oh wow, sorry, I did actually take up most of the hour, so my bad. I think Sarah, you're still on mute. Hello?
Hello? Sarah, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Emuron. As we wait for Sarah to join back, I don't know why her mic is not on. I think this has been a truly insightful session. I'm very sure I speak for all the participants here. Wait a minute, Sarah is calling. Hi, Sarah.
Allow me to unmute myself.
I did.
No, I can't.
Oh. Okay, let me just.
Sorry?
Okay, I've done that now.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Liz, for taking on just there. Liz is the host, so she had to allow me to unmute myself. Thank you very much, Emuron. That was well done, well done, well done. Well done. Even the presentation and the approach is just on point. I'm so excited to hear you. So many of the participants here shared some questions while they were registering for the webinar. So I'll just get right at it. Having ended at the point of the awards, I'd like to ask, in your opinion, what do you believe is your biggest communication piece or campaign? Is it the one that you shared earlier in the presentation of the most eligible bachelor? Or if there's another, the participants here would like to know. Emuron, you're actually muted.
Sorry about that. Yeah. To answer that question, I think as a lot of creatives would agree, it's difficult to select one. Obviously, the most famous one would be the most eligible bachelor, because that went all over the world, even parts of the world that we didn't expect, and of course, even publications or news outlets that were massive. But I would say for me that there's about 4 or 5 pieces that I'm really passionate about. One would be I recently did one for the deaf. I don't know, some people might have seen it, where we're able to get them to listen to football commentary using a little piece of technology. And for me, it's just something I'd worked on for a while. It's something I'd actually tried to do with Coke Studio and so on. It's something I was passionate about. So that, and also I think it was a bit of a game changer for the particular industry it was done in. About 2 years ago, I did together. Okay, not I. We as a team did a campaign for Airtel Uganda, which we shot in Karamoja, and also we did it with subtitles and so on. For me, it was exploring new territory, which always excites me. So that piece of work, and then there's a lot of other pieces. I would say Mr. Money, but if there's one which will always be really dear to me, I don't know if you guys would remember, for Retail Co. A long time ago, where we had a mechanic who was having a particular quagmire. I think it was the first piece of work that got a lot of hype around it. And it's something I've been trying to push for a while. I don't know the word quagmire. It's a long story that we'll discuss in a bar somewhere. But yeah, it's those different pieces of work. So it's hard to select one, but they're those different pieces that I've all had for particular reasons, have a very strong attachment to. Yeah. Sarah's camera seems to have frozen. Frankie sent me the questions. Let me just check real quick and go through them. And I noticed I think someone had their hand up. I don't know. Someone had put their hand up somewhere. So questions, so yeah, there was, what's your most memorable communication piece or campaign? That I believe I've answered. How best can one brand himself or herself as a creative? There's another question I see here. To be honest, I think brand is really about, as we all know, it's about the way one behaves, isn't it? And if you ask me, the most important brand for any creative is to be reliable. Be that reliable creative that anyone can trust to get the work done. Because at the end of the day, I've seen the people who really go far in this industry. Talent is key, but I've also learned that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't want to work hard. So it's important that you show up on time, you deliver on time, and if you're a bit delayed, communicate, let people know. So if you're going to brand yourself as a reliable creative. And the how of branding is by behaving. It's not the way you look, it's not the way you sound, it's going to be the way you behave. So do you consistently deliver? And if you want to brand yourself as an out of this world creative, maybe your focus is like, I don't really care about being the reliable bit, but I want to always be the one known to deliver firework, then it's that. Your behavior must be that every single time the brief comes to you, you will provide something different. Some people prefer to be edgy. So you're going to be the edgy creative. That means every single time that piece of work comes to you or that brief, you will deliver a piece of work that's edgy. So how to brand yourself is through behavior, no other way. You can, of course, go online and create an online persona. But the online persona is one thing. Your brand will be how you behave with your fellow creatives, with your suits, with your clients, etc. So yeah, that's how best you brand yourself, by the way you behave.
Thank you very much, Emuron. I had a technical glitch there. Apologies. I was switching providers. But I don't know if you had addressed the question on the cost of participating in Cannes Lion, if there's any, and What's the process that is involved?
There is a cost. You have to submit the work. So because you see, they have to, the event itself requires facilitation, and a lot of that money comes from the submission fees. So different awards shows different fees. Some people will charge $60 per submission. I know some, like I think DMAD charge up to $700 per submission. So it can be costly, especially if you're a young agency. It can prove to be really costly. That's the honest truth. And that's why you also have to put in the work to make sure that by the time you're submitting, your work has the potential to win. You're not just throwing work for the sake of throwing work in there. So different awards shows have different costs. But then yeah, there is a cost involved. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for that. Someone wants to know, while you were presenting, you mentioned that many a times a good brief will yield good work. So what should a fire brief entail? What should a good brief entail so that even from the client side, we are well versed with how well to brief to get good work out?
So I think a brief should not be too generic. You see, a brief needs to provide the information required for the creatives to give you the best possible work. But also, it should be concise. I've always found that the briefing sessions that end with less questions yield some of the best work, because you've briefed someone, it's become so abridged, it is so concise that the creative knows exactly what they're supposed to do. What gets confusing for a lot of creatives is when the brief is so open-ended, you end up in so many spaces. And maybe some of the creatives might feel differently, but many of the creatives I've worked with, when you put them down one path, you tunnel vision that brief. We're going here. Then the creative has the task of how to get that message out in the best possible way, because what they're saying is clear to them. What gets confusing, and a lot of briefs these days leave the creatives to figure out the message. You're supposed to figure out the messaging, how to package that message, not the message. What we are telling people should be in the brief. We're talking to this person in this target audience. This is the bullet. This is the bullseye of our target audience, and this is what we want them to feel, and this is the message we want to get out there. When the brief is that clear that it can even fit on one page, the one is brief, but sometimes you get a 5-page brief. The brief is supposed to be brief and to the point. When it's that clear and we know what we're supposed to be pushing out there, then we start focusing on being creative about the messaging. So yeah, that's in my opinion. And it's not even sometimes, a good brief always will result in good work, because immediately, and you'll see it, immediately the briefing is done, the creatives are like, oh shit, let's try. They don't want to go away and think. They want to do the brainstorm there and then, because ideas are already floating through their mind. So yeah, good brief, definitely. Hello.
Okay. As Sarah gets back on, can we have Chikomeko Joseph unmute? And your hand is raised, so please unmute and share what it is that you want to share. Joseph?
Morning. Thank you very much.
Joseph, it seems your internet is unstable. Or you're using two devices. That's why we're getting the Okay. Let's see if there are any more questions from the chat. I see Ariho, how is budget not a hindrance when the client's work doesn't leave the boardroom? Maybe we can answer that as Sarah gets back on.
The question is, sorry, how is budget
not a
not a
hindrance when the client's work doesn't leave the boardroom?
It feels like two questions, maybe.
Ariho, when you unmuted, maybe shed light on your question.
Sure, yeah, thanks, and thanks for the opportunity. Okay, you talked about budget not being a hindrance to getting award-winning work, and I think budget has something to do with why we have good creatives seated on either the agency's computer or the client's inbox, because it hasn't been given the legs it needs to gain that traction. Like, it needs that initial momentum. So you do a fantastic campaign, and the client pulls out T-shirts and a poster, and it doesn't give it justice. And the reason they do that is because they don't have budget. Yeah, so I just want you to speak into that, because the work that I have seen that you've done, which has been amazing, is work that has had fair airplay for people to acquire its taste and understand the thought process behind it. I mean, case in point, the Betika ads, and the other stuff that caught the attention of CNN, the Tinder campaign. Yeah, so how is budget not a hindrance? Should we, as creatives, invest in giving clients work traction? Should we love it more than they do? Yeah, so just maybe speak into that if you can. Thank you.
I'll put the question now. True, of course, but budget is a limitation, especially if there's zero budget. There has to be some inkling of a budget. But so what my point was, number one, is that not all award-winning work has to be $100,000 or $1 million. I know a lot of people have that perception that the day I'm given $1 million, man, I'm going to win all the awards in the world. That's not necessarily the case. And that's why I showed there's those two pieces of work from IKEA. And there's a lot of other pieces of work that show that budget, you can do stuff in-house within the limitations that are there. The second thing is, and now understanding your question, I know what you're talking about, whereby you do this dope work, and the client is like, oh, we'll just do a soft launch, let's just do a flyer and a t-shirt. That does happen quite a lot. And I actually have had clients who will ask you to, and this in particular with film, will ask you to write something that's worth $100,000, then come back and say, but you need to produce it for $20,000. Now, that becomes a major hindrance and a limitation. However, depending on the nature of the client, what has to happen when situations like that arise is then you have to go back to the drawing board and say, okay, this is the idea. Because remember, at the end of the day, and I think you're one of the people who actually taught me the difference between idea and execution. This is the idea. How else can we execute it in a way, because what becomes expensive is the execution. How else can we execute it in a way that fits within the budget? If there's zero budget, there's almost nothing that can be done. But also, if I'm to reference like the Tinder campaign, the old Pejeta one, we literally had zero budget, because in some of the people we spoke to, and that's also one of the reasons it took a while. So some of the people we spoke to, like when we first approached Tinder said we want £50,000 for media for 1 week in London. We were like, guys, this is for donating to a cause. If we had the £50,000, we'd rather just hand it over to the old Pejeta Conservancy. That entire campaign cost nothing, because what we did, we went back and sat and said, okay, there's all these different elements. How do we push it through? So we had to actually now find a way of convincing people at Tinder to get it done for free. But then how was to show them the legs. So we made it feel like a campaign for Tinder as compared to a campaign for All Pejeta. So budget, I agree with you. It's definitely a hindrance. But it does not mean that low budget or no budget means that you cannot do award-winning work. Like, again, the All Pejeta Conservancy campaign was exactly $0, $0 shillings, not a single coin. Everything was in-house. So if you count the value of the time that people spent doing the work in-house, everything was zero. And then the rest, the PR, the media, it all picked up because people found the story interesting. So we just had to think a little harder because we had a budget limitation.
Thank you, Emuron. Thank you, Ariho. Chikomeko, Joseph, we are going to try and mute again. And hopefully you've... oh, I see you still have 2 devices. So please remove one device so that you're able to speak clearly without us getting that background noise. Hi, Sarah. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you.
So I don't know if anyone has any questions, please raise your hand. And then Sarah will take it over from there because I think we've addressed all the questions so far. Ariho?
Yeah, pardon me for dominating this section. I mean, I've been part of this, and Frank knows that something usually happens to the moderator. It's a UAA jinx. But thank you very much. And I just wanted to say something about you as a person. What have you had to forego in order to become who you are? Because not many of us could spell your name right. Okay, yeah. I mean, we can spell as a pliqueta, so yeah, you have to do phenomenal things for people to spell your name right. But just speak into the character of the man. I mean, I understand character, I understand competence, but I mean, one without the other is disastrous. Just speak to the character of the man, Emuron. What has happened to you? Because we have very many creatives, and I hope we have the younger ones here on the call. We have very many creatives who have lots of competence. And when it comes to character, they have some gaps, but they kind of think that the competence is going to make up for those gaps. I'll just speak to that. You as a person, how have you metamorphosed to become what you are now from who you were then? I mean, personally, having had the privilege to share an office with you, and seeing the shy guy that you were, that always counting your toes more than it. So, but yeah, so just speaking to that. Thanks.
Yeah. So I think character. You've actually, wow, I don't even know how I didn't put that in the presentation. Character, guys, is everything, and let me explain. Competence gets you into the door, and I believe by competence, Kamara is talking about the skill. Talent will get you in the door, guys. The rest, I can be very honest, and all of you who've worked with me, including Kamara, I don't know if Jeremy is on this call, even Joseph Chikomeko, you guys who have worked with me, at best I was a good creative. Was I a phenomenal creative? No, guys. As I told you, I didn't even know how to write a brochure. There's so many people, and I will not name names, who I am certain beyond a reasonable doubt who are obscenely more talented than myself. This is the difference, and this is now, I believe, what Kamara is talking about. I just wanted it a lot more, guys. I put in the work. I really, there was, I think, even a period of about 3-4 years where I literally worked every single day apart from Christmas. 3 years straight. So that means in 1,095 days, I worked 1,092. And even when I would get accolades or recognition for a dope campaign, I would push for another. There's one discussion I had with a creative friend of mine, and we were agreeing that one of the most essential tools for creative who desires greatness is crippling self-doubt. A lot of creatives have a so strong self-belief that they believe even whatever small thing they do is enough. That's not the case. Even to date, I have a presentation in about an hour's time of film scripts, people I've presented to before. And I can guarantee you when I'm walking to that presentation, my palms will be sweaty. Is it because I cannot write films? No, because I am concerned that maybe they may not be perfect. If you're not consistently looking to be perfect, if you're not consistently, and remember, perfection may not be attainable, but you have to seek it. If you're not willing to put in a hard work, guys, I'll be as honest as possible, forget about it. You will be good or you will be average. You will never be great. If you're not willing to take 3 flights because it was the cheapest option to get to a particular meeting and spend 6 hours sleeping on the airport floor, if you're not willing to go to a different country, in this case, I think it was Rwanda, I had a presentation there, and sleep on a little 2-seater sofa because the money for the hotel didn't come. But you said, you know what, to hell with it. I don't care about comfort. I want to go and learn and prove a point. If you're not willing to take risk, if you're not willing to work until you can't, I think those of you here who have put in the work know what it means to work until you hate being in the industry. And then the only thing that makes you love the industry again is when the work comes out and people love it. If you're not willing to put in that work, I'm sorry. That's the honest truth. I can speak for a fact of people I know, hand on heart, and I just won't name names because maybe it's not the right forum, way more talented than I am or was, but they did not put in the amount of work I did. So if that's the question about character, that's the honest truth. I have worked extremely hard to get here, and I'm still working hard, not just to stay here, but to go to the next level. And if you're not willing to do that, you'll be good at best because you have the talent, or you'll be average because you have talent. Hard work, guys. That's the honest truth. You have to put it in.
Okay, Emuron, you've emphasized hard work.
Yeah.
Have you ever had burnout? Because if you're working the entire year apart from Christmas, have you ever had an experience of burnout? Have you ever had blockage? How do you deal with that? How do you move from that stage to rejuvenate yourself to get back on track?
So there's a couple of things about burnout, and I think today, and especially to the leaders of the creative leaders and leaders of business leaders of organizations, it's important to also identify toxic burnout. There's a lot of people who, and if you notice, I don't know if it's the case in UG, in different markets that people are going through mental health issues, suicides, etc. That's when it becomes detrimental. In my case, and I think at the time that I was working in agency, there was not much consideration for mental health. So when I experienced burnout, I was just forced to push through the burnout. I think Danny Komuda can attest to the days I was working at Scanner, whereby you're even being told, man, you better not fall sick because we have such and such presentations. I remember being chastised, I think, because I got malaria. But it's that you have to push through because there's actually something on the other side. It's like going to the gym, guys. There's a coach who will tell you, man, just push through this pain. The reward is on the other side. A lot of times, at least in my case, and I'm not advising that everyone does that, because I think some people end up breaking down. I was lucky enough I could push through. I do not know of any other way, to be honest. The burnout happens. You look for the idea even. It doesn't come. You can sit there 2-3 days. Your mind fails you. Whereas just last week you were shooting out scripts and crafting all these amazing ideas. Now there's nothing coming. You have to push through and you keep trying. It's only that effort. And then suddenly you sit there and you're like, what used to take me a week takes me hours. You have to push through that. That is one thing. I think even, I don't know if Danny remembers, sometime I tried to fake fainting at Scanner because I was so tired. Where I planned with 2 guys, one guy called Sula, I can't remember the other guy's name, who were, they used to do cleaning and they were big guys. So the plan was, I'm going to come from the smoking area, get in the elevator, you guys come in immediately after me because I'm going to walk into the office and I'm going to fake faint and I don't want them to put me in an ambulance. So you guys will just pick me up because you'll be big enough to carry me, put me in a car and then head out. Unfortunately, the timing was off because when I fake fainted, these guys took like another 7 minutes to come up. So I had to just pick myself up a bit embarrassed, having fake fainted. But yeah, it's gotten to that point where you're fatigued, but I've had to push through. But also, if it's affecting your mental health, be very careful. I've seen cases of people having mental breakdowns. But yeah, you have to push through.
Wow, push through. So someone is asking, how do you change the mindsets of clients who think that campaigns to succeed need to include your usual TVC, radio, billboards, and lately digital?
So how do you change the minds of clients who believe
that for a campaign to succeed, it needs to include your usual TVC commercials, radio ads, billboards, and digital?
So I'm assuming the person's asking how you can convince the client that it doesn't have to be just traditional media.
Yes.
Okay. So in that case, to be honest, it's very hard to convince a client who doesn't trust you. We saw this when we were working on Worried Telco, and those who may have been paying attention to the progression of the work on Worried Telco saw that the work kept getting edgier and edgier and edgier. But we started off with very, very simple, very to the point, basic communication. I think the first piece of work I did for Worried Telco, and this is in reference to when I was working at Scaned. I worked on Worried Telco both at Mad Advertising and at Scaned. And I think when I joined Scaned, they just acquired the business, but did not have the same level of trust because there was a new client. I think, and also they had not had the relationship that Mad had with Worried Telco. So the first piece of communication I think we did was actually just a jingle featuring GNL Zamba, get more, something more, very simple. But we had gone into the presentation with edgy work. But over time, we started getting a little edgier and edgier and edgier till edgy became the norm for Worried Telco. The thing is, and this was the thinking of the leadership at the time, is that with time, you show the client little bits. Again, just using the gym reference, they're not going to make you lift 100 kgs day one. You're going to have to start off with 10. So you give the client little bits. And then when they see that little edgy bit worked, they'll be like, okay, try getting a little edgy. You have to turn up the heat gradually. So the same thing with showing client that, hey, don't do what you're used to. Try something different. It's going to have to be gradual. Do what they have asked you to do and do it so well that they're like, yo, these guys are great. Don't be like, now that they refuse to let us do what we want to do, let's just give them what they want and not show the same passion. When they're forcing you to do what they want, do it with the same passion that they're like, okay, great, these guys are so good at this. Maybe we need to start listening to them. And don't dial up 180 degrees and say, boom, let's do this crazy thing. No, give it to them in bits. You have to wean them. The same way you wean a child off breast milk is the same way you have to wean them into doing what you feel is right. It takes time.
Okay. What's your approach to turning social initiative-based communication into impactful creative?
What's the approach to turning?
To turning social initiative-based communication into impactful creative.
Well, the thing with us, and I'm assuming this is someone who's dealing with a lot of NGOs, for example, whereby stuff that's supposed to have social impact is unfortunately left to be boring and plain and to the point because it has to be idiot-proof. There's two things. Again, it goes back to the whole thing of building that trust. In one case, I'll just give you different instances. So it's difficult, to be honest. Many cases, you always go with amazing work, and then you'll end up doing the very simple, to the point, plain Jane, vanilla type of work. But there have been cases whereby I would tell the client, look, okay, so this is what you've asked for. The simple poster with a smiling person with your message, and it's clear. But we also feel we really want to do this. And if they have the budget to chip in, like also Ariel was saying, if there's no budget, it becomes tricky. If they have the budget to chip in, it's great. But then you have to build the trust of the client by doing what they want perfectly, same way. And you say, okay, the poster, it has the right looking person with the boring stuff, the smiley face with the message, and it's there. But can you allow us to do that? Because it's not going to be an overnight thing. And also understand, with a lot of NGOs, I wish I had an answer whereby I'm like, you can always get them to do it your way. If it's their budget, they'll most likely insist on doing it their way, and you have to build that trust to allow them to do things your way, or at least one of the executions that you wanted to do. The other option is you do pro bono work for someone who unfortunately doesn't have budget, whereby they're like, look, we'll let you do whatever because either way we didn't have budget. The only problem with that is you find that you literally would have to have such a simple yet dope execution that it pushes the idea through. So you end up having to work harder because someone has no money. But then also they have to give you the time to be able to craft something amazing.
Okay, looking at the East African region, where do you see the future of advertising in terms of trends, share pairs, movements in the next couple of months or years? Where do you see the movement of the industry?
I think the industry is going to grow significantly in the entire region. I think now the interesting thing is, I know people are concerned because obviously COVID and so on. Will this mean that budgets will decrease? Yeah, I think so. But I think also the decrease of budgets is going to force people to be a bit more creative, because also the consumer, the average East African consumer, is exposed to a lot of work from all over the world. Their expectation is going to be get their attention. But I also feel that content creation is going to be big. It's not just the one big TVC every quarter. It's like, what are you feeding us every month, every week? So content creation is going to be massive. So yay for the writers. But yeah, content creation is going to be really big. And I think a lot of brands are also going to be switching a lot of their budget to digital media, simply because it's easier for them to get that value for money. They can, it's not like most traditional media, you throw it out there and hope, you shoot and hope. Here with digital, you aim and then fire. So yeah, that's what I anticipate to happen.
Okay. Someone here is asking, while you're working hard, how are you able to balance your work and family and ensure that both sides have the best of you?
So right now it's obviously possible because I'm a senior creative and I have a team, and I can also put my foot down and say I'm not working insane hours. The thing is, in the early days, you have to choose when you make that sacrifice. I'm lucky that the time I was able to make that sacrifice of working crazy hours and not doing any. I was skipping weddings, I was skipping funerals. To be honest, my family was very upset with me. But then I was in my 20s. I wasn't married. I didn't have any obligations of children and so on. So I could get away with it. So if you're young, if you're in your 20s, like Rio was saying, use this time now to put in the work. The fact is, you'll have to put in the work. You can decide to put it now in your 20s, and then you have a much easier ride in your 30s and 40s. Or you can decide to chill now and go and do party with all your friends and have a great time. But in your 30s and 40s, you'll still be working late. So if you want to have work-life balance, you have to choose that time. So use your 20s to invest in that time. Now, still, I know a lot of people in their 30s, 40s will be working in agencies. A lot of people, maybe you've set up your own business and it's taking a lot of time. The reality is you will have to earmark that time. You'll have to allocate. If you don't, especially if you're a family person, someone might start causing up to your wife or your kids might not have the relationship that you want with them. You will have to earmark that time. Some people say, you know what? Sunday is my family day. It doesn't matter what's happening in the world. Even if the agency is banning, you're not calling me. And some people might say, I don't have that privilege of taking off a day. Maybe it's a month. They say, I know someone who used to take a 1 month vacation. And during that month, I guarantee you, doesn't matter what's happening. They're not taking any work-related calls. They're not checking any email. So you will have to lock off that time and you keep it sacrosanct. Nothing can come in the way of it. Be it a pitch, be it whatever. Nothing will come in the way of that time. So that will if you're a senior creative who's swamped with work, ideally, either you choose a day or even the evening. Some people have a principle that, okay, yes, I get home at 8, but from 8 till 6 in the morning, guess what? My phone is off. Because if my wife is in the house and my kids are in the house, I'm assuming there's no emergency, that there's no one really looking for me apart from work. So you lock off a particular time in the day, a particular day of the week, or a particular month in the year, and you make sure that you do not compromise on that time.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Emuron. I would like us to close this session on the questions. You did us proud. You did us well. I'd like to.
Two questions I've seen here. Actually, one, I see Edris has asked, what keeps your creative juices going? I think it's what I spoke of earlier. It's that thing, that desire to be the best. So, if you've won one local award, now you want a regional one. Then you want a regional one, you want an international one. Then you want another one. Then each time you want to consistently develop. And I think it's a mindset. And that's why also, to be honest, when I kept mentioning Edris, I attribute that fundamental element to that. He always kept pushing that you're only as good as your last campaign. And if you want to be a rock, you will be a rock star. So the first person to ever tell me that I'll be a dope creative was Edris. He would tell me you'd be a rock. And I was like, how? I just came from a meeting where the client was like, all the work I went with was trash. But he put in that belief. And then now, when someone has told you that, it's almost like, I've told you you're going to be a rock star, so when? So it's that. So what keeps the creative juices going is that. And also, as I said, see what other people are doing, study, look, enjoy it, and also interact with young creatives. You'll be to learn from them. So yeah, that I want to answer that question. Yeah.
Thank you very much. It looks like questions are still coming in, and yet we wanted to close this session. So I'll just take one more. In a world where we get dosed heavily with ads on a daily, left and center, how do you get remembered by your creative?
I think it's all the things that I said prior. You have to put in the work to be different. That's the honest truth. If you're not working harder and thinking different, your work will just sit with the rest. It's the same thing. Think about it. How do you become the best footballer in the world? What did Ronaldo do? He came in early and he left late, so he could be that little bit better than everyone else till it becomes a behavior. When you talk about Kobe Bryant, he died. Everyone was crying. But how did he get there? Did he have the talent? Obviously, and it's what Kamara was talking about. He had the competence. He was already in the NBA. So why was he coming in at 4 a.m. and leaving late in the night, even after training? Look at Floyd Mayweather. He had won an Olympic bronze before he became a professional fighter. He was a champion so many times. So how is it that at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., he was still putting in the work? So if you want your work to stand out when there's so much clutter out there, remember, of maybe 200 footballers or whatever in the Premiership. There are thousands, almost millions actually. The whole world is made of great footballers. The whole world is made of great boxers. The whole world is made of great basketball players. The whole world is made of great creative minds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of great advertisers. For you to be different, you have to be constantly looking at how you can improve yourself, such that when you do a piece of work and it goes out there, it just stands out from the rest. Hard work is essential to that. Everyone has talent, guys. Don't get it twisted. Don't think because you made it into the agency and you have a creative job, a creative agency job, that you're among a unique set of people who have to. Maybe there's a guy who's a border guy who's actually more creative than you, but he didn't make it in, or a taxi driver, or some guy in the village somewhere. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. And are you creative? Yes. The difference comes with those who are willing to put in the work and do things differently.
Wow. Thank you so much, Emuron. Thank you so much for your time responding to the UAA call. We appreciate you, we honor you, and we look forward to stalking you as well.
Yeah.
I'd like to hand over to Frank Mufusi, the chairman for UAA, to take us on from this point. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Emuron. Presentation was too on point. Somebody tweeted, "You've been dropping gems, gems after gems."
Thank you.
So thank you very much. I'm going to make it short. To the guys who, created time to be part of this webinar, thank you very much. I hope there was a lot of learning. This presentation will be shared to you on your email. We've also been recording this, so we'll also upload it on our YouTube channel, and we shall be sharing to you individually. So be on the lookout for that. Liz will be sharing that. I also want to let people know that individual membership is open. So feel free, you can join UAA as an agency or as an individual. There are a lot of learning opportunities. And this is our second webinar, and every month we'll be having thought-provoking webinars. So keep tuned, keep it locked up. So thank you very much, and I wish you guys a beautiful Wednesday and a beautiful week. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right.